ladies and gentlemen. So we are back once again. This is episode 5 of Cosmic Redemption, the Corey Goode Accountability Project. And over the past few episodes, we've been getting some very exciting, some very compelling, some very shocking, truly shocking testimony about the inner workings of what we know as the Sphere Being Alliance and the very, very tangled web of the one Mr. Corey Goode. And so what we're going to be doing today is wrapping up the testimony of Mr. Leon Isaac Kennedy. For those of you guys that are just tuning in, for those of you guys that are just finding these episodes, what we've been doing is allowing a multi-episodic release of what is essentially a very, very long interview that we chose to cut into separate segments to allow the community to digest, to receive, and yes, also to create very deliberate emphasis on certain elements of the story, certain elements of truth. We are confident that when this series is completed and this energy reaches our community, that we will begin creating a wavelength and a grassroots movement for change, for true disclosure, and for finally bringing dark to light within this ascension community. And so I want to let you know that in the coming days, we're going to be having some more guests, some more individuals are going to be showing up to give their testimony about the targeting, about the literal crimes in some cases, but in most cases, just absolute predatory behavior on behalf of Mr. Corey Goode, and not necessarily to the community at large, but as we've seen time and time again toward those closest to him. And so it doesn't matter on what side of this strange saga you fall. It doesn't matter whose camp you reside in. We are at the stage of the game in which every single person that finds this content is asked to look with an open mind, to truly search your heart and find the shadow, find the element of darkness within each of us that is being called to be revealed, to healed, and in this case, truly made right once again. And so we will be doing an additional question and answer session in the coming days. There will be also a public roundtable tribunal, which we're going to be holding as well. And so we want to make the community aware of that. Please look out for it and also share these videos. No one here is trying to make a career out of this process or this project. We are calling on the community to help us get the word out. And so today we're going to allow Leon Isaac Kennedy to continue to just go ahead and wrap up his statement about Mr. Corey Goode. And so without much further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hand it back over. And this is Cosmic Redemption, Episode 5, the Corey Goode Accountability Project. Here we go, guys.
Guess what, Corey Goode? You're getting no Hollywood deals because the word is out in Hollywood that you sue everybody who wants to work with you. Nobody would take a chance on working with you. By the way, Matthew, if I had vetted Corey, I wouldn't have worked with him. The way I got involved, I was working with David Wilcock. I trusted David. David then said, Corey is a good guy, but he needs some help. You know, his business is in shambles and so on and so forth, but he's got some good ideas. Will you work with him? So I didn't vet him. If I had vetted him and even heard 1/5 of how he had operated, even how he had sued his former IT company back in 2014, much less Gaia, much less all the other people, there's no way in hell that I would have wasted my time with this gangster, this little con man.
Yeah, no, I feel you. This is,
let me go on about disclosure because something else came to me.
Go ahead.
You've already interviewed Adrian. You know that on DOD, she worked very hard to have a streaming content. So when the whole thing was done, there was over 30 hours worth of streaming content that should have gone on somebody else's platform to be shared, where the speakers could have made more money, and also where the public could have gotten those 20, 30 hours worth of teaching that was not available at DOD because it was extra. But because Corey was now suing or talking about suing Adrian, he put out the word to every networker, anybody that so much as even plays this, I will sue them. So it made everybody back off.
Yeah.
So the other participants that were the speakers and presenters, none of them got extra money. The community didn't get the 30 hours worth of extra teaching, all because of Corey's selfishness. And by the way, Corey was being treated equitably. He was told, if this streaming gets on, you'll get X amount of dollars. But Corey, being Corey, blocked the whole thing. So he doesn't care about disclosure. He only cares about what works for Corey at the time it works for Corey. And people in this community need to wake up. You need to quit making excuses for him. You need to really just connect the dots. It's not so hard, and see that this man needs to be shunned. You don't need to pay anything for any online course. You don't need to give any money to any defense fund. You don't need to go and see him at a conference. You need to just leave him alone and shun him and shame him for the way he has treated people and the way he has tyrannically treated this community.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being real. I mean, thank you for truly bringing the realness, bringing the fire. I mean, I appreciate that. And I think a lot of people are going to have some big reactions to those statements. Go ahead. Go ahead. I want you to please feel free.
So let's deal now with the reality of a lawsuit. Because by now, when we hear of another Corey Goode lawsuit, it's become almost ho-hum, mundane, every other month occurrence.
Mm-hmm.
But now let me share with you the realities of what it does to that individual. In the midst of this pandemic crisis, our ministry on a daily basis has been overly burdened with calls from individuals that are having panic attacks, that have lost hope, that have lost businesses, losing homes, spouses breaking up. Their cars are being repossessed. Their life's work is going down the drain. Other families breaking up under the burden of these various pressures. You know, there's more spouse abuse going on. There's more child abuse going on. There's more divorce going on. Other calls with family members of people and individuals attempting or threatening suicide. Others thinking it's the end of the world. And additionally, one of the heart concerns of this ministry has always been the homeless. And up until now, during this whole pandemic, Matthew, most people don't even mention the homeless. But I ask you, how are the homeless supposed to safe distance? How are the homeless supposed to continuously wash their hands? Where are they supposed to go during these times?
Question.
They are dying, the homeless, in huge numbers, and it's not being reported. So these are all the things that this ministry deals with on a daily basis. And yet, in the midst of this, I had to, and my office had to take over a month to answer over 212 written accusations, most of which was a sloppy cut and paste boilerplate paste job, obviously used in Corey's Gaia lawsuit. Nevertheless, no matter how unprofessional and sloppy, it still had to be defended. It took my staff and myself and my wife, Maureen, months to dig through emails and texts and memos and documents so I could document the truth in the boxes of documents that we have versus his atrocious lies with not one shred of documentation. Mm-hmm. It also takes time to interview and vet the proper attorney to represent a case. With the expense, I've been told by the chosen attorney that the cost would be anywhere from $150,000 upwards. And also the duration of time. By the time this whole thing would work through the regular court system, we're talking about 1.5 years. What a waste of time. Now let's look at the human toll that Corey has extracted, the emotional and physical toll that he's exacted upon individuals with his methods. I recall Jimmy Church calling me, being very angry with me. I love Jimmy Church. I had met him at a social function, and every time there's a conference, I would give him a hug, but he called me very angry. Leon, are you managing Corey Goode? I said, no, I'm not his manager. I'm his business associate. What's going on, Jimmy? Well, you know, Leon, I supported Corey. I gave him a platform, and then he's turned on me. And the things that he has done to me has caused my wife, Rita, an emotional toll on my wife, Rita. I could share many other stories with you, Matthew, of other people throughout this community this Corey Goode has taken out an emotional toll on. In my opinion, Roger was asking for very little money for what he was willing to walk away with. The same with Adrian. They just wanted to be finished with Corey. But once again, you pointed out earlier, not only does he want to not treat anyone fair, but then I told you at the beginning of this whole talk, once he goes into that dark side, all he wants to do is go into his military action and then totally ruin, totally destroy you.
Yep.
And so that's what he's tried to do with every single person that he has come into contact with. Now, when he first came with the lawsuit and we asked our attorney, what does he want? Because everybody just wanted to be fair and go their separate ways. Who wants to continue to be around Corey? Right. Our lawyer came back with, he's not wanting to negotiate at all. What Corey wants to do is go after your personal assets, win a judgment, and then force a seizure and sale to satisfy judgment. So for those of you listening, what does that mean? It simply means that Corey is so vindictive that he wants to totally destroy Roger, Adrian, and me, and anybody else, Jay Widener, anybody else that he's suing. Any properties that we might have worked for all of our lives that should be passed on to our children and grandchildren and other family members, Corey wants to take and in a military fashion, totally destroy his adversary. This is the type of tyrant that's been let loose in this community. You have anything to say, Matthew, or should I go on to the next one?
I was actually going to let you roll there, but I want to say something now. This is predatory behavior. This is the definition of service to self behavior. And I've said this multiple times over the past few days. When we look back on the saga of Corey Goode, when we look back on the manner in which this individual showed up on the scene, and who knows, you know, once again, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you guys that have been watching this saga here, at no time did we question or debunk or destroy or malign the testimony that Corey brought to the table. What we're doing here today is we are shedding light on the personal behavior of our disclosure celebrities and these people. You know, like we said earlier, you know, they're literally saving their money during the time of COVID to try to be a part of this guy's, this guy's teachings, what he's bringing to the table, which we find out aren't even his. You know what I mean? And then we find out later on there's over $1 million nearly missing, won't even pay the people that put the work in, all the way down at the end of the line after all these deals and all this energy and all this money and all the personal risk and your reputation. Even after all that, the shield bearer of disclosure, ladies and gentlemen, now he's suing you. They're trying to take your assets. They want to take whatever they can from you. And it's like, it's almost like for Corey Goode, it's not really about disclosure. It's not really even about the money. At a certain stage, it's like he gets a vendetta. He gets this, this sort of fire in him, and he wants to destroy. I don't know about you guys. For those of you guys that followed the disclosure narrative here, I don't think that's what the Blue Avian set out to teach us. I don't know if that was the Anshar's plan for full disclosure. And I don't know, maybe we're going on a windy road here, Leon. I want to let you finish up, but thank you. Thank you for bringing us this information in this manner. For those of you guys that end up seeing this, I honestly didn't even know what to expect when we came in the door here today. A lot of the things that are coming through in this moment, these are things that I am also just now being made aware of. And I think for everyone else in the community, even if you watch 5 minutes of these multiple testimonies that we're putting out, people need to be made aware of the level to which your disclosure celebrities have utterly preyed upon the people that put them where they are. And so anyway, with that said,
All right.
Leon, I'm gonna let you finish up. Go ahead.
Let's talk about Corey's self-imposed reign of censorship over this community. As I said before, Corey actually blocks disclosure. You see, real disclosure is investigative reporting and a coming together to share and compare information. That's the antithesis of what Corey does. He doesn't share, he doesn't compare. He does whatever is necessary to block and smother anyone else. He wants the spotlight only on him. They must be the biggest stars in the room. Part of Corey's MO is to defame and then systematically block and smother anyone else that doesn't flow with his agenda. With no validation, Corey terms them the dark side, Luciferian, the cabal, LARPers. If Corey was in the secret space program, keyword program, then of course other individuals would have also been in a program. So why is Corey stifling disclosure by blocking everyone else's testimony? Reviewing just a few of many examples, who is Corey Goode to tell the programmers and producers at Gaia Network who they can and cannot put on the show? Corey used the feeble excuse that the other participants were fake, LARPers. According to Corey, everyone else was a fabricated testimony. Only his was authentic. But isn't it ironic that out of all the others, they willingly took a lie detector test? The only participant that refused the lie detector test, guess who? As I said before, Corey Goode.
We need to emphasize this for everyone that sees this. I think it's time we ask Mr. Corey Goode. Maybe you should take a polygraph test, Corey. What are you afraid of? Seriously, what are you afraid of? Go on, Leon.
In these past years, Corey's rigorous blocks to cast dispersions or smother the experience of others had nothing to do with truth, and certainly nothing to do with disclosure. It had everything to do with Corey working hard to be a star, to keep generating star money and smother anyone else that might absorb some of his star spotlight and all that comes with it. This community did not appoint Corey Goode to be the jury and judge of whose testimony is real or relevant. If the Gaia programmers elected to give Corey airtime, it seems that they're professional enough to put others on the air without Corey issuing a cease and desist and other nonsense. You, in this community, the audience, should have the right to decide and discern for yourself whose testimony is authentic. I know radio's coast-to-coast host, George Norrie, and his producer, Tom Danhauser, well enough to have had several lunches and conversations with them. Additionally, I know the beloved radio host, Jimmy Church, who I just mentioned. So I think the coast-to-coast audience and Jimmy's audience are exceptional in their research and in their intelligence. As professionals, they have booked and interviewed thousands of guests for their audiences to hear. It's up to their audience to decide for themselves whose info they resonate to. So who other than Corey and his attorneys would have the audacity to send a beloved veteran talk show host like Jimmy Church a cease and desist an hour before airtime, demanding that Jimmy not interview his special guests? What happened to freedom of speech? Much less disclosure.
Wow.
Corey was trying to deny Jimmy's audience from hearing an experience or a point of view other than Corey's. By his actions, Corey is calling the rest of us, the people of this community, stupid.
Pause right there, Leon. I need to ask a question because this was a big focal point for people in the community a little while back. There was all this talk, there was all this rumor, there was all this negativity about people like Jimmy Church, and there was a lot of talk about, Coast to Coast AM, and at the time, they were the enemies of disclosure all of a sudden. And here we are finding out down the road, Corey Goode actually sent a cease and desist letter thinking he could put a stop to who Jimmy Church was going to put on his own show. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Is that true, Leon?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay. And so for everyone else out there in the message boards and in the Facebook groups that are calling people out saying Jimmy Church was the enemy, saying that Jimmy Church was the enemy, you guys need to look back on what's really going on. We need to look back on who this person is, because I'm telling you, Leon, and I know you can see me kind of like, having my own little moment over here, but I mean, this is mind blowing, the level to which this individual has created such insane wreckage behind the scenes in our disclosure community. I mean, people need to hear this. And so I know you got some more to say. Please continue. Agreed.
So picking up on what I just said, by his actions, Corey is calling the rest of us, the people of this community, stupid. He's saying that we don't have enough sense to discern for ourselves whose information is valid and who we should follow. Therefore, Corey will impose his will over all of us, and by default, decide for us. And of course, through Corey's censorship, he's our only choice. What's very alarming is that from his initial appearance, not enough have stood up to oppose Corey's reign of terror, nor his reign of censorship. As a result, with every unopposed action, Corey has become more emboldened. And so now we say his misdeeds done in the dark are being exposed. Mm-hmm. Many of you know there is an energetic shift that is taking place all around the world. Masses of negative energy and misdeeds that have been done in the dark are now being exposed. Powerful figures like Jeffrey Epstein, Harvey Weinstein, brought down by the Me Too movement, corrupt police brutality brought to the light, and justice by video and national protests. And within this cleansing that is taking place, this season of cleansing, it is well past time for Corey Goode and his pernicious behavior to go away. His strong-arm tactics, his reign of terror, his reign of censorship must be brought to an end. He has totally abused his position of love and trust and leadership that has been brought to him by this community. Corey, you previously sent me an ultimatum to comment on the content of Roger's letter. So now, within this public forum, I will make some comments. And let's remember, Corey, you asked me what did I think of the letter. No, I'm sorry. You didn't ask me. To be more specific, you demanded my thoughts. So here's my thoughts. If I were a Gaia stockholder, I would be demanding a full-scale investigation into the part you allegedly played in trying to drive down Gaia stock. After reading Roger's letter and now understanding certain aspects, I now have a better picture why you were always so interested and delighted and sent memos to all of us every time Gaia's stock seemed to go down. Remember, Corey, you asked me what I thought about Roger's letter. I believe that Roger's letter was correct, that you did dox people within this community, that not only did you dox them, you formed a cell of devotees to dox many members, and you hurt many members in this community. You asked me, Corey, so I'm telling you, if I were members in this community, I would be demanding my money back from online courses. I would be demanding my money back from your legal defense fund sham. All the despicable criminal things that Roger's letter addressed, I believe that they're accurate. And furthermore, subsequent to a vast number of Corey's victims have identified a plethora of your ongoing urge to dominate. Roger also mentioned that you have a drug use problem, and I think that's where your money goes. It's impossible to go through as much money as you go through. Those of you stating that by exposing Corey, every time a Jordan Sather or somebody else goes against Corey, you say that we are starting division. No, division started with Corey. Division started the moment Corey dropped into this community. So for those of you that say you don't want to get involved in purging Corey from this community, I say this to you. We are all one special tribe. We are all one special family, spiritually put together to seek truth and move humanity forward. And so when a countless number of your brothers and your sisters in this community are continuously victimized by this tyrant, Corey Goode, you are karmically involved, whether or not you want to be or not.
Yeah.
Here's a quote.
Go ahead.
If we do not act, we shall surely be dragged down the long, dark, and shameful corridors of time, reserved for those who possess power without compassion, who possess might without morality.
Yeah.
Cowardice asks the question, is it safe? Expediency asks the question, is it political? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? But conscience asks the question, is it right? And there comes a time when all of us must take a position that is neither safe nor political nor popular, but one must take it because it is right. Those were two quotes from Martin Luther King Jr.
Thank you.
And so I asked this community, how many more victims must there be? What are you going to do about it? How many more months, how many more acts of Corey's outrageousness before this tribe says, no more? When there's a cancer in the body, healing cannot take place while that cancer still remains. That cancer either has to be cut out, burned out, or nutritionally flushed out. But one way or another, it has got to go. And so for this reason, many of us are taking a stand against Corey's reign of terror by saying, no more.
Absolutely.
We are starting our own legal defense fund, not just for us, but for anyone in the past that has been harassed or bullied, or anyone in the future that is targeted by the Corey Goode. You no longer have to have fear. You no longer have to be intimidated or manipulated or dominated by Corey and his hit squad attorneys. This fund will help you from being one of Corey's victims, and we will assist you with your legal ramifications as we say to Corey Goode, no more. And it gets even heavier.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Not only are we offering a legal defense fund for anyone that is legally bullied, much less sued by Corey, but we are also setting up a special fund for the various women that have been sexually harassed by one Corey Goode. I've had too many various women approach me. I've heard too many whispers regarding Corey harassing these women, such as we had sex on a different timeline. We had sex on a different planet. We've had sex in another lifetime. It's time that we have it together now in this lifetime. Or you should have an Anshar baby. And many other statements and actions that I won't mention on the air.
Yeah.
According to these women, Corey has intimidated, confused, and taken advantage of various women. And so I say this in all sincerity. You women that have been abused, you no longer have to be afraid or live with your fear, your shame, or your confusion. No one in Hollywood was more prestigious, more powerful, or held in higher esteem than the modern day movie mogul, Harvey Weinstein. Once upon a time, women were afraid to come forward regarding his misdeeds. However, it only took one, just one brave woman who started the then Me Too movement, which freed multiple women. Others received financial settlements, and Harvey Weinstein is now in prison for his misdeeds. So you don't have to be afraid or hide anymore from Corey Goode or what he did to you. For those of you that have been taken advantage of, I personally know the attorney and women's champion, Gloria Allred. Enough said. I will personally make sure that you and your complaints are introduced to Gloria Allred.
Thank you. My goodness. Oh, thank you, Leon. We've got quite a statement here. For those of you guys that are watching and taking in this information and testimony of Mr. Leon Kennedy, what we've heard here today is a very, very compelling testimony. The interesting tangled web of Mr. Corey Goode and the Spirit Being Alliance. And I don't want to cut you off there, Leon. I want to make sure that you get everything out. Is there anything else you think people need to know? Is there anything else people need to be made aware of? I know we've covered a tremendous amount of information here. We got multiple episodes, all sorts of information. So please, go ahead.
Spent a lot of time, so I'll wind it up for now, and I'll come back later for part 2. So let me say this. My life is already an open book. I've been in show business and under scrutiny since I was 15 years old. In my 50 plus years of doing hundreds of radio, television, and movie projects, as a business entrepreneur that's done hundreds of deals, as one that's worked and interfaced with some of the biggest star names, politicians, and major personalities and tycoons of industry. Tycoons of industry, Matthew, like a Lee Iacocca, or Kirk Kerkorian, or Jean-Paul DeJorio, or Barry Gordy. These are not people that I just know in passing. These are people who I spend time with, or I'm at their house, or they're at my house. Many, many stars. I could name so many stars throughout the years, all the way back from when I was a kid with the Beatles and Elvis Presley, or traveling around the world with Muhammad Ali, or Muhammad Ali being in my movie and Ali coming by my house and us working out together and so on and so forth. Ice Cube, who calls me the godfather of independent filmmakers. I could go on and on and on, but I say this, I have rubbed shoulders with the who's who. And yet, in 50 years worth of being in the spotlight, there has never been a hint of a scandal of Leon taking advantage of anyone. I've always been termed an upright guy who kept his word. So I say to you, Matthew, in these 50 plus years, I've never been maligned as I have been by this Corey Goode. And once again, can everyone else be wrong and only Corey be right?
Good question.
So to the community, by coming against Corey and his attorneys, and when I come back in part 2, I have a lot to say about his attorney, Val. I'm going to give Liz a pass right now because I see that she has found out the hard way that Corey is a snake. But I'm going to come back at a different time and talk about Val and any other attorney that Corey will use to spread lies upon people without doing a fact check, knowing that this man is mentally unbalanced, and yet they do his dark deeds. So I conclude by this: as more and more atrocities have been brought to my attention, the more I've become full of righteous anger and disgust by what Corey and his attorneys have done to so many of you in this community. My attorneys had advised me since March to say nothing and let them settle this through court. However, much of this information would never have come out in the court process. And as stated in my opening, this community, I want you to be the courtroom, and I want all of you to be the judge. As this expose of truth comes out, Corey and maybe his attorney will go into their crisis management. Corey will do his usual overdrive with more smear and lies to try and divert focus from actual truth. But I say this to you, Corey, you can only tell so many lies before the public finally sees through them, because it becomes the same old lie. You can only try putting out so many spins before you spin out of control. And so, Corey, there comes a time where everybody has a moment of reckoning. You've only got a few choices. You can take a long sabbatical. You can truly humble yourself. You can ask God for help. And if you're sincere, there are light workers in this community that have long arms and that will reach out and help you to change, to recalibrate, as I would call it, and truly be of the light versus the despicable darkness that you display now. However, if you continue to choose to be led by this dark energy, if you continue to be arrogant and oppose your will on others, well, let me just put it this way. There's such a thing as called accelerated karma. There's such a thing called divine judgment. I've already seen it coming, and it's not going to be pretty for you. You've lied on too many people. You've viciously tried to execute too many individuals and their careers and their finances. And most importantly, too many times you have lied on spirit. And so now you're being held accountable. The choice is up to you. The choice is yours. Except for saying that I am now open to do a lot of interviews, because I am totally committed to eradicating Corey out of this community. For now, I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Leon. I mean that very, very sincerely. And for everyone out there that sees this, wherever you are in this strange realm, we've been through a very, very long road. It's been a very, what a tangled web we weave in the world of disclosure, in the world of ascension. For those of us that come into this awakening community, seeking knowledge, seeking light, seeking, trying to understand what we're all doing here, how we got here. What is the mission? What's this thing called disclosure? You know, for all those people out there that bought in to the Sphere Being Alliance, that bought into these courses, that bought into this, you know, this individual and his behavior. It's time for this, you know, this soul group to really have a reckoning, to really begin to look at the truth that is being laid out here. And no matter which side you stand on, wherever you are in this, you know, because, you know, Leon, there's going to be a lot of people that no matter what you say, you know, they're going to be like, oh, it's the Dark Alliance. These guys are trying to attack Corey. You know, there are people that no matter what, they're going to buy into that. And there's nothing we can do about that. But for everyone else that is ready to look at the frequency of truth, for everyone else that came into this soul group, ready for disclosure, ready for ascension, ready to go through the true change here on the planet, I think it's time that people really begin taking a good long look at the reign of terror, at the predatory behavior, and especially after everything that we have learned here today, the literal evil that presents with Mr. Corey Goode. It's time for us to really take a look at that. And I know this, you know, this has been a long, you know, this has been a long interview, Leon. We're going to end up making this into, you know, probably a couple of episodes, but I'm going to say this before we go. On behalf of this soul group, on behalf of everyone that has been preyed upon by Corey Goode, and I'm going to say their names, on behalf of David Wilcock, Emery Smith, Dr. Stephen Greer, Linda Moulton Howe, Richard Dolan, Bill Ryan, Carrie Cassidy, Teresa Llaneros, Derek Faust, the Dark Journalist, Jimmy Church, Elena Kapolnik, Tony Rodriguez, James Ring, Randy Kramer, Og Tellis, Dylan Lewis Monroe, Duncan O'Finian, Shane the Ruiner, Miles Johnson, Stina Bobina, Adrian Youngblood, Roger Richards, Liz Laurie, and now Leon Isaac Kennedy. Ladies and gentlemen, look at what's going on here. We have an individual who is legitimately, purposefully poisoning our community as a spiritual teacher, as an individual that fights, that has devoted my life on a daily basis to the uncovering of the frequency of truth and assisting people learn how to heal their bodies, their minds, their souls, figuring out what we're all doing here. I think as a community, we can no longer stand for this type of predatory behavior. And, you know, Leon, I really, really sincerely want to thank you for being here from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for the courage. Thank you for coming forth. Thank you for risking everything, for naming names, and for finally telling the truth. People need to hear this. And so thank you very sincerely, my friend. Any last words before we get out of here?
I'll end it the way that I started, and that is, Corey, as a self-proclaimed so-called hero and defender of light, I simply ask that you be man enough to accept my challenge. Let's turn the lights of a camera and talk face to face, man to man, go through each accusation, and have someone from this community here to moderate. And Corey, one last thing. If you don't accept my challenge, we'll have one more negative to describe you as, and that is coward.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Leon Kennedy. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in the grand conjunction in December of 2020, and there is a change. There is a forced realignment taking place on the earth plane right now with respect to predatory darkness. I want to thank everyone for driving down this crazy windy road for us. Everyone else that's going to find this in the future, this is the record in time for our experience with the scourge known as the Sphere Being Alliance. And I've said it many times, it might not be the last time. It will go down in history. I say this for the record. This will go down in history as one of the most colossal spiritual hijacks that we have seen within the disclosure community. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and leave it there. Lots more commentary, lots more to talk about, but that's it for today. So live from the earth plane, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Matthew, a member of the Forward Action Committee, working on behalf of truth and justice, righting great wrongs, and assisting people to figure out what we're doing here in this ascension game. I want to thank you all for watching, and that's it for now. The story goes on.